morning, everybody. Happy Saturday. We are at 9:30 Central Time here. We are going over those underdog slates for Sunday. Going to be starting doing this at 9:30 from now on. My wife started a business, so I'm helping her out, and they open right at 9, so I'm going to be starting to do that. So I'm going to start doing these at 9:30, so make sure you tune in every week on Saturday at 9:30, and we're going to go over all these underdog slates. But before we get too much further, always want to thank Underdog for the partnership here. If you go and use my code TJS at sign up for new customers, you will get $100 in bonus funds for Underdog to be able to play with. All you got to do is enter that code TJS, play a $5 wager, and then you will get that $100 for free to play with. So make sure you use that code TJS. But let's go ahead. Let's jump right into it, because that is what you're here for. You don't want to hear me talk all day. So as always, for anyone new here seeing this for the first time, I'm going to go through each and every slate. I try to do about 4 players per slate that I really like. Then at the end, I'm going to build up my ticket based on the ones I'm most confident on. So some of the ones even that I'm like saying like I like this may not be in my end ticket, if that makes sense. It's just the plays that, you know, if people are considering, these are the ones I'm looking at. You know what I mean? So we're going to go through each and every slate. Some slates I may skip just because, you know, I don't like the matchup. I think that the projections are just a little too on the nose. So there are some games that I will skip. But let's just go ahead. Let's jump right into it. The reason that I'm hesitant on this game, the whole reason, let's go right to it, is only from the Vikings side. Offensive lineman, starting guard, starting center, backup center, they're all out, all of them. So who is going to really be blocking for somebody like Carson Wentz in this game? Now, the Browns also have a very good defense. So when you look at the Browns situation in general, with those linemen getting home, you know, because there's nobody to block for Carson Wentz, I don't know if 196 is actually realistic. You know, he did 350 against Pittsburgh, which was incredible, but it's just that Browns defense is so good with how many offensive line struggles they have. I think that one could be an easy miss on his part. But then again, he could come out and ball. I don't know. It's hard. But if I'm going with my gut, I'm going to take that lower on Carson Wentz, just because with how that defense operates. They already hearted all. Oh. Hold on. Got to go back from last week because I did not change my hearts. I didn't remove them. So let's go ahead and do that. All right. Remove. Sorry, no, this is, there we go, peak entertainment, there it is, back to what we were doing. But if you just even look, at the rankings for the Browns here, they've given up the 27th, like, points to quarterback. This is not going to be a easy home run game for Carson Wentz. Look at the rankings on wide receiver, too. Let's just check that out. Oh, sorry, that's tight end. Wide receiver. Now, they have given up the 15th most points to wide receivers, so they are able to pass the ball. So that's where it's a little tough, a little tricky on this one. But if I'm going with my gut, it would be Wentz lower there. On that same side, it's tough because Justin Jefferson should be that top target. I don't know. In all honesty, this one is hard on the Viking side, at least. On the Brown side, I like it a little bit better, because if you look at the Browns or the Vikings in general, they do have a decent defense overall. They're 6th, passing their 3rd. And then if you look at their rush defense, I think this is where their weakness is. Yeah, they're 24th. They're 24th in this situation. And you have somebody like Quinshon Judkins, who's come in and he looks like he's that guy. So I'm going to go ahead. I like this. I like the rushing yards at the higher, just because I think that is something he can do. He's starting to heat up. He's hitting those numbers. The only one he didn't hit was in Baltimore, but that was his first real action, so I'm not really shocked by that. So I think him getting 75 yards is definitely in the realm of possibility, especially with the fact that the Vikings defense's weak spot is their run game. But with that said, let's look at Dylan Gabriel. He is a big question mark. 175 yards seems very low for somebody like that. But what I'm really thinking is I'm going with the pass attempts on him. I think the Browns are going to try to get him ready to go. I think they're going to try to ramp him up and get going like, hey, this is the NFL. Let's get you throwing the ball. Let's get you comfortable. Let's do everything to that degree, because the Browns aren't completely out of it yet. So I think they're going to try to, stay afloat as much as they can. So I don't see that one being totally insane. And then just because the offensive line struggles, I think Myles Garrett is getting home this weekend. I don't think that they're going to be able to stop him, especially with how many injuries they have on the offensive line. Who are they really going to put if he moves around? I think he's going to be able to get home, especially with how good that Browns defense is. So if I'm looking at the London games, this is what I'm looking at. These are the ones I'm feeling most comfortable with, just because, again, Jordan Addison could very well get 43 yards. Justin Jefferson could very well get, 70 yards or in the end zone. We have no idea. Granted, we have no idea of any of this. That's the whole point. But I'm trying to minimize risk, and I feel like these four would be the least risky in my opinion. Now, granted, as I will say with every single one of these, do what you think is best. I'm just giving you my opinion, my gut feeling, my gut instinct. This doesn't mean you should do exactly copy and paste what I'm doing. This is more to talk it out and tell you why I'm thinking the way I'm thinking, and hopefully that helps you build a better ticket. Now, if you do want to do everything I'm doing, great, but just at the end of the day, don't blame me if something doesn't hit, because I get, I do the bigger tickets. I do 8 usually, and then, I'll miss 1, maybe 2, but usually that's the trend with me. So if you only want to make a 4-player ticket, 3-player ticket, definitely do that. But these are just the options that I'm going through. So let's go ahead, jumping into Dallas and New York. Now, this is going to be interesting just because the Cowboys looked good without CeeDee Lamb. George Pickens really looked like he stepped up and he was able to be that wide receiver one. Again, somebody that I have doubted throughout his career, because as a wide receiver one, he never really put that together. In this game, however, I do think there is potential for him to get into the end zone or at least get his yards, because the Jets, if I recall, are not very, they're ranked 17th against pass. So, pretty decent. Yeah, they have Sauce Gardner, but he has not been the same player. The Jets as a whole have not been the same defense that they have in years past. Here, they've allowed 130 yards rushing, and where was their passing? They've allowed 199 yards through the air. So, with George Pickens having his come-out game, I think 74 yards is very realistic. I think that's a very strong possibility of something that he could absolutely do in this game, hands down. Now let's look over to Justin Fields here. Justin uses his legs. What have they set him at? 51.5 yards, okay? What has he done? 81, 49, 48. Okay. It's your not ideal situation, but again, this is a Dallas team that has struggled in stopping the run, and I think that Justin being able to use his legs the way he does, especially when a pocket breaks down, I think this is a situation where he could absolutely come in and get those rushing yards. What is it? Did they give him an attempt? Let's see what his rushing attempts is. 8.5 rushing attempts. That's also a good one. I don't hate it. I really actually don't. That's a tough one. I could go either way with that one. I could either go rushing attempts or rushing yards. I think both are a strong possibility. So I would definitely take either one at that point. Looking at his man, Garrett Wilson, the guy has been a revelation this year. He has been his number one target. He has looked like a much better player than he has in years past. I think he's going to hit that reception. I think that's his best shot of getting 6 receptions and getting those points that way. And I think he can absolutely hit that with a very, minimal amount of attempts. Because again, the Cowboys are not the greatest defense in the world. What are they allowed here? 32nd. They've allowed the 32nd most passing yards, meaning dead last. They are dead last when it comes to it. Fantasy points allowed to wide receivers, they're number 1. They give up those points. So I don't think it's really crazy to say that he's going to get those receptions, but I'll even take the yards at this point. Oh, they didn't even give yards. Is he hurt? No. Kind of odd that they're not giving him yards. I'd keep an eye on him. Is he on the injury report? Let's double check that. Garrett Wilson. No, nothing. Nothing at all. So that's weird. So for right now, I'll take the receptions, but if the yards come out, I will definitely take that instead. This man has been a revelation as well, especially for Dak Prescott. Jake Ferguson, I don't think he's a bad option. He gets the targets, he gets the receptions. He is a player who will get those. So I think 7.5 targets isn't bad. So I'll definitely take that as well. So those are the 4 I would be looking at. Now, where is Prescott? Because when I was looking at numbers earlier, I didn't hate where he was at. Let me see. There he is. 242 in this game where it could absolutely be a shootout isn't bad either. I don't hate it. So if you really want to get more involved, because for me, I like building tickets where, yeah, I want to win, but I also want to make my Sunday more fun. Like, I don't like doing a morning slate and then a bunch of afternoon players slate. You know what I mean? That way, it's like, if you lose your morning slate, your hope for the whole day is gone. You know, I like to mix it up. So, you know, and I also like to do the hires just because when it comes to hires, you're rooting for a good game. You're rooting for the things to happen instead of things not happening. So I rather be a little more optimistic saying, yeah, they can do that. So that's my thought process. But I would also take that. I don't think that's a bad pick either. I think this game is literally going to be one of those games that is just a back and forth, fun sludge fest in Dallas. So, oh no, it's in New York. Excuse me, in New York. Granted, I think somebody is going to get hurt in that game just because that turf is awful and Malik went down last week, but that's not for me to say here. So, moving on to Indianapolis and Vegas. Colts give up 21st amount of passing yards in the league. The Raiders give up the 23rd. Right next to each other. Mr. Danny Dimes had an okay game last week. I think that changes this week. Again, he still got 262 yards. He's at 226. I think that's pretty realistic. I think that's definitely achievable for Daniel Jones in this game. No real questions, if, ands, or buts in that situation. Now let's go ahead and go to their rushing defense because Jonathan Taylor is somebody that I wasn't high on last week just because playing the Rams is always that big question mark. Raiders give about 102 yards per game to the running back position. So they're looking at Jonathan Taylor at about 88.5, so basically getting 89. And last week, yeah, he didn't get that. He didn't even get in the end zone. Tennessee got in the end zone. Denver, he didn't get in the end zone, but got the yards. I'm feeling more comfortable about the yards here. Now, obviously, I like playing rush and reception rather than just rush because if he's going to catch the ball, I don't want to be rooting against that, but it's a smarter play, I think, to just go for the rushing yards here because he's not that big of a pass catcher, and the difference between the rush yards and the receiving and rushing yards is too big of a gap for me. So I'll go ahead and take those rushing yards because, again, I think this is a game where Jonathan Taylor can definitely get that against a Raiders team that does not really do terrible against the run, but they're not great. Now, if we look at the other side here, sorry, wrong one. If we look at the other side here, where are the Colts when it comes to rushing defense? They are 9th. They're very good against the run. But what do they give up against running backs? The 27th. They only give up 16 points. So even though Ashton Genty had his breakout game, only at 66.5 yards, it's still worrisome to me. But I'm still willing to take that risk. I think that that's one of the better options in this game just because when you look at the Raiders and what they're doing with Ashton Genty's breakout, I think they're going to start feeding him more and get him, you know, going in the sense that he needs a hit. He needs to basically get those, he gets those yards after he's touched. And I just think getting in the NFL, he's going to need to get those touches in the sense of getting the hits on his body, knowing how to get out of them, gaining those yards. And I think this is going to be a game where they go, okay, let's keep going. Let's see what he's got. So I like the 66.5 yards here. I also like Tyler Warren. He looks like he has been the best option in Indianapolis this year, even with the other players. He rushed a touchdown in. That's crazy for a tight end. So 60 yards, something he's done most of the time. I'm going to stick with it. Again, I think Daniel Jones likes him as a target. I think this game is going to be a little pass heavy more than run heavy. So I think Tyler Warren getting those 61 yards is definitely realistic and definitely doable. So those would be the 4 I'm looking at here and the ones that caught my eye last night. So let me just clear out this one. Okay, let's go ahead and go into New Orleans and the New York Football Giants. The Giants have a very good run defense. They do. I'm going to take Kamara at the rushing receiving yards just because I think Spencer Rattler is going to have to dump the ball off a lot this game, and he's going to have to catch the ball more than he is used to. It's a hard number just because, I don't like what he's done so far, but I just think how this game is going to go, I think that's going to be the Saints' only real option when it comes to any type of offense whatsoever. On the flip side, this man has had his breakout game. He has had his arrival, and I don't think that the Giants are going to turn away from him. Look at what he did against the Chargers, a much better team. I think he's going to get his 66 yards in this game just because, again, the Saints don't have a good defense. They aren't very good in most things. Let's see here. Where do they rank against running backs? I don't even see them. I'm not blind. My God. Oh, no, they're actually pretty decent against running backs. Okay. Oh, no, excuse me. They're not. They're not. They're 9th against running backs. They've given up the 9th most points to running backs in this situation, and I think this is going to be a game where Scatterboot gets the ball, and they let him just keep getting more mature and start taking a handle on that role. With the injury to Malik Neighbors, I think Wandale is going to start getting more touches. Yeah, last week wasn't great against the Chargers, but they're a much better team than the Saints. I think he's going to get the yards. I don't think receptions are a little more questionable, and the targets are way too high compared to what he's been getting, especially with only 5 last week and 4 the week before. So I think the yards are the most realistic just because he needs one breakout. And with that, I like Jackson Dart as well. I think 174 is a little too low for him. I think that they're going to open up this game a bit more against a bad Saints team, let him get more comfortable. Again, this is more about the rookie situation and young team to get, I don't want to say get right game, but a game that they should win in the fact that they should build confidence in this game. Jackson should be able to get the ball out. He should be able to hit his receivers. So I like these 4 just because, again, they're pretty low against a bad team that's pretty realistic to eventually hit. So those are the 4 I'm looking at in the Saints and Giants. Again, in New Orleans, home game, but the Giants' defense is much better than people really give them credit for, especially against the run, just because that front is incredible. Houston and Baltimore. Again, another very tricky one just because you have a backup quarterback for the Ravens going against the team who has allowed the least amount of points in the NFL. So I'm not expecting a ton of touchdowns in this game. With that said, though, I have to give away my bias. I am a Texans fan, so we are going to start with Nico Collins. Nico has looked okay this season. Not for where he was drafted from a fantasy perspective, but he's done okay in the sense of the Texans haven't really gelled as an offense. Their offensive line isn't great. CJ hasn't been able to hit the same throws that he hit the year before. So I think this game is, again, another chance for them to really get what they need done because the Ravens aren't a good defense really either. They allow... Okay, they're pretty decent against the run. But against wide receivers... Where'd they go? Against wide receivers, they are the 6th ranked team. 6th ranked team giving up the most points. I think this is a game where Nico establishes his dominance once again. And this is why you check every single option, because I can go for the 72.5 receiving yards, or I can just go with the 70.5 rushing and receiving yards. 2 less yards. Yeah, 2 yards, but 2 yards is 2 yards, so I'm going to take that option just because why would I take that, especially if there was no multiplier? If there was a multiplier, yeah, sure, I'll take the receiving yards for the 2 extra, but I'm giving myself a better odd there, so I'll go ahead and take that. One man who's always performed against the Texans is Derrick Henry. So I know that he's a man who has not played very well this season. He's, he had his breakout game at 160 in week 1, and then only broke 50 one more time. So he's a guy who's struggling a little bit. Even though he's been good against the Texans, 87 just seems high, even with the Texans' problem. I don't want to risk it, just again, because he's somebody who has performed well against the Texans, but I don't think he can get that in this game. Where is Mr. Marks? This man is breaking out. He is going to be the Texans' #1 running back, and you can see it right here against Tennessee, who is a very bad rush defense. Actually, yeah. I'm taking the rushing and receiving in this again, just because he is a threat in the backfield, and I think the Texans are starting to realize that, and he's a good check down option for C.J. Stroud. He's somebody who, when he can get the ball out of his hand to somebody like Woody Marks, Woody's going to get those yards. So I think at 72.5, I think that's a very realistic option. Big question mark here, just because you haven't really seen what he can do. So I'm avoiding it. Normally, I'd take the lower, just again, playing against a very good defense, allowing the least amount of points in the league. I'd take the lower on that usually, but again, he hasn't really played that much. He hasn't played enough for me to actually get a baseline of what he can actually do. So this is really it. If he played last week as the starter, I'd probably feel a little more comfortable going, okay, this is what it looks like. But only getting 2 quarters and already 52 yards, I think 177 is a little low for somebody like that. So that's what I'm saying. I'm going to avoid that one. I do like the idea of a revenge game for DeAndre. I think he could get in the end zone again. Not a great option when it comes to, last week, but 8.5 receiving yards I feel like is a little low for somebody like that. He needs 1 catch essentially at 10 yards, and he's got that. So I like DeAndre just, again, because it's so low. Revenge game in Houston, I think at 8.5 receiving yards, I think that's a risk I'm willing to take unless, is he on the injury report? No, he's not. So, again, a very feasible option for the Ravens in this situation that I feel very comfortable with. I think this is another get-right game for CJ. He looked good against the Titans, got 233. He's been in the 200 range. He's going against a team who gives up a lot of points. It's not great defense, so I'm going to trust CJ in this again. Is it my favorite pick? No, but if I'm picking 4, these are the 4 I'm looking at in this game. So that's how I look at the Texans and Ravens again. A team that does not do very well against anything in the Ravens, against a defense who gives it the least amount of points to everybody in everything else. So with a backup quarterback, if it was Lamar, I'd have a little more faith. I think I'd be able to justify, hey, Lamar can break this, that. But with Cooper Rush just being the starter, I don't have faith. Okay, moving on to the Dolphins and the Panthers. He didn't hit for me last week, but I like Ted McMillan again. He is obviously Bryce Young's favorite target, and I think that he is going to be able to, do what he needs to do in this game and basically play it out. Sorry, I'm trying to get that out of my screen here. There we go. Perfect. Okay, so I think he's going to do it this week, especially against a Dolphins team who has not looked very good when it comes to, playing the game of football, if I'm being blunt. So I'm not a huge fan of them stopping Ted McMillan, so I'm going to go ahead and trust that in my instincts here and go with Ted for that 65 yards. What is the status on Chuba Hubbard? Because there were talks that he may be out. He is going to miss. Okay, so that makes Rico Dowell a little more interesting just because he has gotten touches. He's gotten, goal line work. It's just a matter if we actually believe that he is going to, the Panthers as a whole are going to be in the red zone. I'm feeling risky, but I like that. I like Rico to get in the end zone here, getting the chance to be the starter. He's already gotten that role as a red zone back, so I think this is another opportunity for him to get there. As far as the Dolphins go, Darren Waller looked incredible. He looked like he is the favorite target of Tua Tagovailoa, so I'm going to stick with Darren right there at 30 yards because he, again, was great the other day. So 27 yards and 2 touchdowns. Only needs a couple more, and I think he gets that. Last week was his first game, first getting his feet wet, so I think he can absolutely do that this week. Not really too afraid of that. Outside of that in this game, Trevor could get 17. Yeah, Trevor could. I'm going to go ahead and, again, it's a risky because we have no idea what that backfield's going to look like, but I think Trevor can absolutely get 17 yards, especially with last week with him really getting work. He was able to get 33, so I think that can carry over. I think he can get that pretty easily. So those would be the 4 I'm looking at in this game. Again, it's one of those games where there's both teams are so bad that it's like I don't trust everybody. But moving on to Denver and Philadelphia, one of the games that I'm more nervous of than anything. This one probably won't be 4 just because both teams are good and bad with them. The Broncos defense is very good. The Eagles are undefeated, so this could go either way. But I like Dobbins for the rushing. What was his receiving at? So I like Dobbs for the rushing. I think he can absolutely hit that just because with the McVay offense, I think that's pretty realistic. He's been a disappointment this year. He has. It's undeniable. He's not the same player he was last year, but I like him getting in the end zone this week against a good defense. I think he can definitely get in that end zone, earn those points, and make us hit there. Don't want to touch him with a 10-foot pole. How do you only get 150 yards in the first, or 130? I gave him 20 extra yards, my fault. 130 yards in the first half and don't do anything in the second half. That does not bode well for something like this where I want to take the over, so I'm going to avoid that at all cost. The only other one that I was really somewhat interested in was Bo Nix, because I do think that he will be throwing the ball in this one, so I like him at getting that higher there. But those would literally be the only 3 here just because, again, I don't trust the Eagles right now, especially with a quarterback who doesn't get more yards in the second half against a very good defense in the Denver Broncos. So I'm going to avoid the rest of that. So that's the 3 I like in that one. Moving into the afternoon slate here, it's a good game. 50th anniversary game between these two franchises wearing some of the coolest uniforms. I think there's going to be a lot of hype in this game. And I like Mbuka to get over his receiving yards just because if we look at the Seahawks when it comes to their defense, they do have a very good one. They've only allowed 18.5 points. But with Chris Godwin being back, Mbuka is going to be that new role of being the number 2 option. So I think he's really going to take over and get those 60 yards. No problem. No problem. I want another breakout game from JSN. I don't know if this is wishful thinking or the fact that, I doubted him and I just want to be that wrong about him, but I think he can get that. I think he can get 81 yards in this game. It's going to be one of those ones where, a little more back and forth, if you ask me. But I do like Rachaad White over 51 yards. With the injury to Bucky Irving, I think Rachaad White is going to get his touches. I think he's going to get the opportunity, which is exactly what you want in a situation with a running back like this. Now, 78.5 rushing and receiving yards. He does catch the ball. He does do very good at that. It's not unrealistic. I kind of like it a little bit better just because I think he's going to catch the ball a little more. And then outside of that, I like Sam. I do like Darnold this week. I think that he has been somebody I doubted heavily coming into the season just because how do you go from Justin Jefferson to just JSN and expecting to get the same type of production? I didn't really see it happening, and he's proving me wrong. This is another favorable matchup. Again, a game that could be a very high-level shootout. I'm going to take my chances with those. All right, and then Tennessee, Arizona. I'm going to basically be heavy loaded on Cardinals in this game. I think Marvin Harrison, this is the game that he really breaks out. Like last week, he got his touchdown, 66 yards, looking good, going against a very bad Tennessee team that should definitely get that as well. Mr. McBride is somebody that I'm also looking at. He gets targeted like no other, and I'm taking the targets higher because, again, this is going to be a game where I think the Cardinals dominate. They may not pass the ball as much, but I think McBride can definitely get 9 targets. Granted, this is a game where I could also see the Titans actually having a come-out game with Cam Ward and actually looking much better, so this could be a game that ends up being in a shootout as well. On the Titans side, it's tough just because there's not a whole lot of people I love. again, against good defenses, it's hard. It's really hard in this situation, but I think I'm going to take the higher targets on Calvin Ridley. The connection's not been there, but I think that this is going to try to be the best get-right game the Titans have, in my opinion, just because they don't face a lot more teams like this that are going to be this bad. So this could be their opportunity, in all honesty. No, that's too close. See, that's what I mean. I think those would be the three here. Just again, it's going to be a shootout. It's going to be a big question mark game. It's not going to be something that I feel 100% comfortable, but those would be the three that I'm looking at. Moving on to the Commanders and Chargers. Omarion Hampton had his breakout game and looked fantastic. He looked like he can definitely shoulder the load of being RB1, and I'm going to ride that in this week as well against a Commanders team that, looking at what they do against running backs, they're 22nd, so they can be beat. They're not dominant in any stretch of the imagination, but I'm going to go ahead and take that rushing and receiving because Hampton is able to catch the ball. He got 5 receptions and 6 receptions in the last 2 weeks, so I think that's a very realistic opportunity for him and a game that should be very good. I like Jaden Daniels this week. The only thing is he's coming back from injury. 205 doesn't seem crazy, so I'm going to take that. I really like that. I think 205 is very realistic in the sense of they could be throwing a lot against a Chargers team who is pretty decent in just about every aspect of their game. So I don't hate that one in it. So Quentin Johnston, a kid that I doubted his first year, but he is looking good. His receiving yards, I just think that continues. I think it's way undervalued. Look at where he's been. He's hit this every single week. Every single week he's hit this. So I think that's a little low for him, so I'm going to continue to ride his low value at this point and go ahead and take that one. I like Herbert. I really like Herbert. He's looked good. Yeah, I'll take that. I'll take the higher on that. Again, out of the 4, it's my least confident, but it's the one that I like enough to take a risk on it just because this could definitely be a shootout. Let's see, what is the line set at? Chargers, Commanders line. $47.5 points is what they're expecting. Oh, excuse me, 48.5. So they're expecting multiple touchdowns at least. So I think this could be a shootout, and those are the 4 I'm looking at. Those are the 4 that I would feel the most confidence with in that situation. I wish there was just a clear all button. That would be game-changing. All right, Detroit and Cincinnati. I'm taking Gibbs rushing just because, again, the lines are probably going to be up quick and easy, and it's probably not going to be a game. 216 for Jake Browning. 216. Yeah, I'm taking the under on Jake Browning there. That's pretty. 216 seems insane. Insane to be giving him that kind of range. And yeah, those would basically be the 2 I'm looking at just because, again, I think this game is a blowout. No chance in hell I think the Bengals have. So we're going to go ahead. Those would be the only 2 I'm looking at in that game. Moving on to the Sunday night game. James Cook has been looking great value, especially if you do season-long tournaments, or season-long fantasy rather, not tournaments. And I think that continues. I think that continues in this game. I think he rushes and receives for over 98 yards. I don't think that's really that much of a challenge. Like Josh Allen's passing yards to be over 229. What is his pass attempts are set at 31. He's only done that once. That's too high. That's way too high. If that was closer to like 29.5, I'd feel way more comfortable with that. But 31, Team is 4-0 though. Because that's the problem here, is that the team they're playing is undefeated. They're a good team in the Buffalo Bills. Is it possible for them to throw 32 times? Sure. But I just don't think it's realistic. I don't love that one. Diggs is another situation where he's starting to break out. He's starting to get that relationship. But again, it's against a Carolina team that he really broke out against. It's tied for highs in target. Oh, no. Second in targets. So I like the 5.5 targets, honestly. I think that one is good for Diggs, personally. And what is Kincaid looking at? I like that one, too. I like Kincaid getting higher than 33 yards. I think that's definitely doable for him. So those would be the 4 I'm looking at in that game right there. Again, I think the Bills dominate this game, but I do think that they lay it on a little bit of a division rival. So we'll see what happens there. Last and not least, we have Kansas City at the Jacksonville Jaguars. It's another situation. I don't love any of it. This is definitely a game that I'm skipping just because I don't love it. I do not love it at all. So let's go ahead and jump over to the favorites. Don't do this to me like you did last week. There we go. Okay. So taking Judkins. So first we're going to build a ticket that I'm most confident on. The 8 I feel most confident. Judkins, absolutely. I think Garrett gets a sack. I think Pickens gets the yards. I think DeAndre 8.5 is just too low at a revenge game chance. I think that one's pretty decent. So we need 4 more. Where's Woody? Hampton, I think, is also decent. Let's go ahead. I don't think it saved Woody Marks. Perfect. Okay. Like James Cook too. I know. I like Kincaid, but am I that confident in Kincaid? And let's go ETN. Let's take a risk. I'm taking a risk this week. So these are the 8 that I really enjoy, that I think are going to hit in this week just because of the matchups, everything to that degree. So let's go ahead. Let's flex it up. Let's get a little crazy here and do $10 on this one. Confirming that. All right. So that's number 1. Now let's do an AM slate here of the ones that I really believe in. Again, Judkins there. We won't do the sack on Miles just because you want to diversify a little bit. I don't like that they're not having his yards, so I'm not going to trust that. Let's get Ferguson in there. Fields in there. JT for a touchdown. Pickens getting the yards. Need 2 more. I think Dart gets that. I think Jones gets that. Alright, let's do that one. Alright, now let's keep moving down again. I think that's just too low. Ted gets that. I think Waller gets that. That happened. Nah. Yeah. Absolutely taking advantage of that. Taking CJ over that. Big decisions here. Big decisions here. I think that's nice too. Those are another 8. Okay. All right. So those are the 3 I'm starting with right now. Those are my 3 tickets that I'm going to be doing. Let's go ahead. Let's do another college football one just because throwing some stuff at the fan, seeing to what sticks. Alright, let's go ahead. Let's boost it. Let's do a 60% profit booster here. Alright. I think he hit for me last week, did he? Yes, he did. I like that. I like that. Ooh, that's tough. Going into Michigan and being that. Ooh. Air Force Navy. Ooh. Alright, KSU versus Baylor. Yeah, I think that's realistic against KSU. Let's be real. Love KSU, but tough. All right. Oh, UNC. I thought that was USC. Okay, UNC. What's their quarterback? Oh, they don't even have their quarterback. That's how bad this game's going to be. All right. Don't love any of these. That's one thing I hate about college is that it can literally be a blowout like this. You know what? For our servicemen, let's do it. Ugh. Alright, I just need 3 more for this. Stick the higher there. Alright, 3 more. Or 2 more, excuse me. You know, I think this one's going to be a shootout, honestly. Rivalry game, sold out. Kid's done that multiple times. Texas Tech kid, he's done that. Ooh. Oof. Ugh. Yeah, that one's too rich for my blood. I liked it at first, but then looking at what he's done in the last couple weeks, I don't love that one. That one I don't love. All right, let's see. KU. This kid's been pretty good. Threw 445 last week against Cincinnati. Against Yusuf, yeah. Let's go. I'll take it. I hate taking KU, but I'll take it. All right. And that will do it on this week's slate. I hope you all have a fantastic week. Thank you for joining me here. Make sure you leave a like, comment, and subscribe to this channel. Make sure you use Underdog Fantasy and use that code TJS in the sign-up page to get a $100 bonus when you place a $5 wager. And let's play together. Let's have some fun here. Like I said, you can trust me if you want to trust me, build these tickets, but trust your gut. Trust what you think. If you think I'm way off on some of them, go for it. Do what you think is best. But overall, have a great weekend, guys. Good luck to everybody. And let me know how you do down in the comments. Until the next one, have a good one.